Good morning, friends. Welcome. I'm here at Empty Cloud Monastery, and today we have a special guest, Shifu Simplicity from Berlin, who will be sharing with us the Bodhisattva Vows, the Four Great Vows. So thank you very much, Shifu Simplicity, for joining us today. So you can find Shifu normally at Miao Fa Centrum, where you see it's the background that you see on her screen. Miao Fa Centrum is in Berlin. It's a lovely Mahayana Chan Buddhist temple and meditation center. So they have, I don't know, during these days in COVID, if you have programs happening at the inside or if you're doing things outdoors, Venerable, maybe you can say a little bit about it.
Yeah, we have programs like we have our regular classes, but we try to wear masks and keep the room ventilated and don't have as many people as we could host in normal times. So we try to pay attention to social distancing.
Wonderful. Okay, so you can visit in person and indoors. And also Venerable is also opening another center, retreat center right outside the city. All right, so without further ado, I'll pass it on to Shifu Simplicity, who can share some words of Dhamma for today. Thank you, Venerable.
There's one question. Do you use German only? Well, normally, yes, our classes are in German and we sometimes have activities in Chinese. But yeah, occasionally, if there's a request, we also had something in English. But the English was more monk chat, Q&A that were in person and also via Zoom. You can find the activities always on our website. So now we start with today's topic, the Four Great Vows, and it's a Mahayana topic. But no matter whether Mahayana or Theravada, we have in Buddhism, it's very important to see our direction and to make vows. Vows are a power of our mind, so we can say it's an empowerment, a self-empowerment, how we can gain strength to practice and also to practice with perseverance, not to give up when there are some minor or even some bigger obstacles coming along the path. And so we need to have our direction clear. And also it's very important to understand according to the principle of cause and effect, and also the teaching that everything is created by our mind, that we line out our own path by our mind and our actions. So when we create, we all know about karma, when we create wholesome thoughts, wholesome actions, wholesome speech, we will reap wholesome results. But it's more than just that. It's more concrete. So when you, for example, you make a donation to a monastery, a Buddhist monastery, you make a donation to Buddhist monks and nuns, then you create a karmic relationship with the three jewels, with the Dharma. And so that's different, a different karma than you create when you make a donation to a charity. So it's not, of course, you create good karma, but the concrete outcome of the karma is different. So when we understand that principle, we can see it's very important to see what we wish for and also to act accordingly. So we always want to practice, to work on the good conditions and set our long-term goals in the practice without attachment. And so when you practice, we all have the wish, we want to leave behind suffering, we want to leave behind samsara, we want to enter nirvana. That is a great vow. And in the Mahayana practice, the greatest vow you can make is the Bodhisattva Vow, and that vow basically has two aspects. One aspect is you vow to fully realize Buddhahood, to become a Buddha, fully enlightened one. The first part, and the second part is to vow to help all sentient beings to overcome suffering and also to realize their own Buddhahood. So there's two parts. The part that is concerning ourselves, our own practice, and with that aspiration to fully realize Buddhahood. And but Buddhahood can only be obtained when we practice helping other beings, when we cultivate compassion and we open our mind, our heart. And so that's why the other part of the vow to help all sentient beings, that is equally important, and the two of them are deeply connected. And we say that everyone has the potential to become a Buddha. We all have Buddha nature, that's what we call it. It's the nature of awareness. And what Buddha has realized is nothing else, nothing more or nothing less than pure awareness. The Buddha means the awakened one, or the aware one, or the one who woke up from a dream. And so that the Buddha is someone who has realized his full potential, who has brought this deep awareness to the absolute level. And on the absolute level, there is no more duality between me and others, between self and others. There's no more ego. There is the Buddha nature, the absolute level is emptiness. But apart from emptiness, there is all the virtues of the mind, all the big, great qualities like compassion, like wisdom, respect, joy. All these aspects are equally present in that awakened, enlightened mind. And so the state is also beyond the duality of existence and emptiness. So you can say it goes beyond the realization of only emptiness. And that is the level of a fully awakened Buddha. And how do we become a Buddha? The main part is to cultivate great compassion, because when we otherwise we still get caught in the notion of there's a me, a self, and there's other beings. But we want to transcend that duality. We want to transcend that limitation of our concepts. So we can transcend that by practicing compassion, by seeing all other beings as ourselves, and all the pain of other beings as our own pain, without being attached to it and without being put down by it. So when we line up this big vow, we create great strength. We have the potential to go through this, follow this through with this direction, life after life, all the way until we fully achieve the goal of attaining Buddhahood. So we can say the vow, the power of vow is like when we make a vow, we set our GPS. We set it on the goal, and no matter how many detours we make, or our Google Maps, and when we make many detours and even we turn around, our Google Map will always say that at the next crossing, make a U-turn, make a U-turn. And then we know that we are going in the wrong direction of our goal, opposite to our goal. So the same is with making vows in Buddhism. Those vows, they are imprinted in our consciousness, and they help us to always find back to our way of practice, life after life. So if we cannot realize that goal in this lifetime, next life the vow will take care. If the vow is strong, next life we will come into contact with Buddhism and also with the practice, with practitioners or a teacher who practices the way to also the Bodhisattva way. So we learn, we get realigned, and we can pick up with the practice from our previous lives. So the fact that you are listening to this talk, nothing is coincidence. You are not just listening, but your previous mind, your karma, and that is also your vows, brought you to Buddhist practice, brought you to listen to this talk right now. So making vows is very important. And sometimes you all know in our practice, we have times when we feel more tired or we are more distracted by other life situations, maybe some problems in our lives or some happy events, or we fall in love, and then everything is more important to be with our loved one and to practice, or we get totally engaged in our job and in the career or in our studies, and then we slack with the practice. We forget the practice for a while. But when we made vows, we will always come back. We will always remember at some point when our mind calms down a bit more, we will remember to continue with our practice. And so the vow carries us through. And also when we have hard times, like the other day, there was a lay practitioner here who she's elderly, and she had a lot of health issues and also was in hospital, and she came out of hospital and she was feeling pretty unwell, and she came to me and she said, oh, I think I don't have the strength anymore to practice Buddhism. Maybe I should return my precepts, and maybe I should even return the 3 jewels, the refuges. And I listened to her, and I said, so what's going on? Do you not like the Buddhist teachings anymore? And she said, yes, but I think it's so difficult, and right now I don't have the energy to practice. So, well, I told her to just relax and to take it easy and to do one thing at a time and to take care of her health right now and to practice just mindfulness of breathing, and that you can even practice lying down or practice reciting the Buddha's name, and don't worry about what is a good or a bad practice. And after a few weeks, she got better, and then she totally picked up the practice again with new energy. And so there might be times when we are very low and we want to drop the Buddhist practice altogether. But our vows, they will help us to keep us going. And even if we drop the practice for a while, we will pick it up again. So that's why vows are very important. And in the Mahayana practice, as I said, the main 2 parts of the Bodhisattva vows are to vow to fully attain the full enlightenment of the Buddha, the complete enlightenment, and to help all other beings. And that is to be very energetic in both aspects of both helping ourselves and helping others. And so there are universal vows that people on the Bodhisattva path, they make, and it would be good if we remember to make those 4 great vows every morning we get up, or in the evening before we go to bed, or at some other time of the day. So they get really imprinted on our consciousness and we don't forget them. What are the 4 great vows? The 4 great vows, I read them. Countless are sentient beings I vow to liberate. Endless are afflictions I vow to eradicate. Measureless are the dharmas I vow to master. Supreme is the Buddha way I vow to attain. So there are the 4 great vows. So those 4 vows, so the first one is to help countless sentient beings I vow to liberate. So that is the main one of the, well, they are all equally important. So the first is to think of other beings. So when we can actually take those great vows and put them in relationship with the 4 noble truths. So the first one is the noble truth of suffering. We realize that sentient beings are suffering, no matter in which realm. Of course, obviously in the hell realms or in the hungry ghost realms, or even in the animal realms, that are the 3 lower realms, there's a lot of suffering involved that we can see clearly. But also in the human realms, there's a lot of suffering. Then there's health issues, there's a lot of emotional pain and distress. And when we look around in our society or even in our families, we can see that people have a lot of suffering. No matter how rich they are or their material life, there's always something that causes people to suffer. Maybe there are some happy spells, but there's a lot of suffering around in human life. And that's human life has a mixture of joy and suffering, but with also a lot of suffering involved. And also in the Deva realm, there is suffering. Of course, Devas enjoy a very pleasant life due to their good karma they created, but when their lifespan ends, then they also experience the suffering that they realize they may be reborn in another realm. They may descend from the Deva realms, and that causes them a lot of worries. And also a lot of, so they are still caught up in samsara, and the suffering just follows at some later point. And nobody can stay in the Deva realm forever. So here we are aware of all the suffering of sentient beings, and being aware that sparks our natural compassion. Compassion is a very important force, a very important motivation on the Bodhisattva path. And the more we make ourselves aware of how people suffer, what kind of different sufferings there are, and we observe people, animals, we observe other beings, and constantly become aware of their pain and their suffering without being caught in it. So that's sometimes something that happens, is that we see people suffering, and then we suffer with them. And in German, there's a word that we call Mitleid. We suffer with them. But here, compassion in the Buddhist sense is not meant that we suffer with them, but it's a kind of empathy, that we are aware of their suffering. We can feel their pain, but we don't get drawn down. We don't get attached to that kind of pain and that kind of feeling, but we are aware of that feeling. So when people are ill, or people experience stress or emotional suffering, we can feel that suffering as if it was our own, but we don't suffer at the same time. We are just aware of that suffering, and we wish that all beings may not suffer. So that is the first vow, correlates with the first noble truth of suffering. And so our natural reaction is that we wish that all those beings are not suffering. And so when we make this vow, countless beings I vow to liberate, countless sentient beings I vow to liberate, means that countless sentient beings, that means I don't discriminate. Oh, there's those I like, my family members, my friends, when they suffer, I, of course, want to help them, but I'm also ready to help others that I don't know. I'm ready to help the stranger. and I'm even ready to help my enemy. When I see they are suffering, I do my best to help them to suffer less. Of course, when we want to help others, we need wisdom, and that is also incorporated in the third vow to learn all Dharma doors. We need to have the wisdom to understand what is the right thing for them to do right now. So if we only have blind compassion, we may do something stupid that may even aggravate the situation and may not help them. So wisdom is also very important, and also patience. To help someone out of their suffering also doesn't mean that we say a few words or we do one thing and then that suffering of the person stops. It's a long-term thing. If we want to help someone, we need to help them, for example, to also understand cause and effect. We need to understand them, how they are causing their own suffering by their own karma that they create. And that not everyone is ready to listen to this kind of talk. Or maybe there's animals who are not able to listen, who don't have that wisdom. But we have the patience to help them life after life. We don't get tired. We don't think of our own practice. Now I have enough of sentient beings, or I'm so busy. Then I want to go back to only practice myself, and the world is too difficult to change. Of course, it's difficult. This vow is very strong. It's very powerful, but it's powerful because the task is not easy. But when we make a vow, we ourselves, we gain that strength through the vow that we don't feel tired. We don't want to give up. We are always reminding ourselves there are still people suffering, there's still other sentient beings suffering, and they need help. And so I can continue, and actually my own tiredness and my own interests, they be put in the background. And at the same time, while I help others, I practice myself. I cultivate compassion, I cultivate wisdom, and also I train myself not to attach. Also, when I help someone, not to attach to the result. That's very important, because often we want to help others, but we have certain expectations. Expectations of the result, expectations of how the other person should react, how they should be grateful, how they should treat us. But all this is our own attachment, and then there's ego involved. When we read the Diamond Sutra, there is the sentence that repeats very often in the Diamond Sutra. The Bodhisattva is practicing generosity without a notion of a self, of others, of sentient beings, or of a lifespan. And that is to practicing generosity without attachment, without attaching to the form of sentient beings, without attaching to the form of a self. We cultivate the wisdom that myself and sentient beings are all illusory. And in this big illusion, I don't just lean back and sit on my couch and say, okay, it's just an illusion, but I'm active, because what counts, how I create the world, is through the actions of my body, speech, and mind. And so I know that we are all an illusion, and sentient beings are an illusion, but each sentient being is attached to their self. So they don't realize that it's an illusion. So that's why they suffer. And so we help, and while helping, we don't attach. And when we train ourselves in that process, before we are there yet, and we are still training, we cultivate that, we remind ourselves constantly that me and sentient beings are all illusions. And that's how we continue the path. And that's when we are aware of that, we don't feel tired. And so that is a great vow to help sentient beings. My teacher often said, or once said, I remember, to help a sentient being doesn't mean to help them to do good deeds, for example, to make donations. To help sentient beings doesn't mean to help them to take the 3 refuges, to become a Buddhist. To help a sentient being doesn't mean to just help them to take the 5 precepts. And to help a sentient being doesn't mean to help them just to become a monk and nun. But what it really means is to be there for them, accompany them all the way until they realize Buddhahood. When we think what that means, that is a very long-term commitment that we make if we really just decide to have one person. And so in that long term, many things can happen. And that's why we need our vows to really keep the strength up and not feel, oh, sentient beings are tiresome and troublesome, and a lot of in the world, life in the world is impure, and there's so many distractions. And when I deal with people, they talk about so many worldly things. And all this is our discrimination in our own mind. As when we practice the path, we need the wisdom to see that the true reality is beyond likes and dislikes, is beyond pure and impure. So of course, there's times when I do feel influenced by that. And of course, there's times when I need to maybe take the time for my own personal meditation or do a retreat to charge myself. But altogether, not to be influenced and think, okay, altogether that's too troublesome for me. And so the vows can help us to move on. And the next vow is endless are afflictions I vow to eradicate. We all have afflictions, and our afflictions, we call them always greed, anger, ignorance, pride, doubt, wrong views, the ego. That is our root, the 6 root afflictions, but there are countless minor afflictions that cloud, obscure our mind and prevent ourselves from seeing the true nature, from being in touch, in harmony with our Buddha nature. So that's how we need to be aware when we want to help others. We cannot just help them with a nice theory, but we need to cultivate ourselves. We need to cultivate our mind and then reduce our afflictions, reduce our anger, reduce our greed, and step by step our mind and our actions become more and more pure. And in that process of more and more purity, we generate more and more positive energy. And with that energy, it is also easier to help others, because we have gone the same way. We have gone the way before them. So on the Bodhisattva way, there's the 2 aspects of practicing for ourselves to cultivate our own mind, to purify our own body, speech, and mind, and at the same time to help others to do the same. So here, when we correspond this with the 4 Noble Truths, the afflictions are the root, the cause of suffering. So this would be the 2nd Noble Truth. And we all want to, when we see the cause of suffering, we want to remove that cause. We see clearly, we practice also in the process of helping others. We observe our mind, we introspect into ourselves and look what is there, what is my motivation. When I help others, is that pride? Is that arrogance, for example? do I think I'm better? I already know more about Buddhism, and you, pure being, you are just suffering, you know nothing, and you all make these mistakes. That would be arrogance. So we need to see whether there's greed. When I help others, is there greed for power? Is there greed for material support, and so on? So we need to see clearly what are our vexations. Or maybe there's anger when beings don't follow my instructions, when they don't repay my gratitude, and they treat me badly. And all these are my own afflictions. And on top of that, I have afflictions when I just live my daily life. There's countless afflictions, and it's our daily life practice to always introspect into our mind, to observe ourselves and see whether our mind is pure at the moment. And most times when we look clearly, we can still see there is some impurities in our mind. And so we work on purifying our mind, letting go of our thoughts, letting go of our anger. And we have various methods that we learned in the course of the practice that we need to use on ourselves. We, of course, needless to say, we need to follow the Buddhist ethics. We need to follow our precepts. So only then our actions can be pure. And so if we don't conduct well, how can we inspire others? How can we help others when we continuously create bad karma for ourselves? So this, the second vow, endless afflictions I vow to eradicate, is about our own practice. And of course, we see our afflictions, and we see also when I have afflictions, and the more clearly we look into ourselves, the more clear view we have on ourselves, the better we can also understand the situation other beings are in and what kind of afflictions they are troubled by right now. Now that is the second vow. The third vow is measureless are the dharmas I vow to master. The dharmas here, or in Chinese, it's called Dharma doors. Measureless are the Dharma doors that are the Buddhist methods, the teachings, the various teachings the Buddha had given that are useful to practice the path. So here, again, when we want to help others, it's very important. Maybe we find a few methods, a few meditation methods, a few sutras that suit us, that inspire us and help us to transform for ourselves. And we find them very useful, and we can practice accordingly. And then that is enough for our own personal practice. Maybe if you deeply go into Buddhism for your own practice, maybe you just need one word. For example, the word letting go. That can be from superficial, can be to deeper and deeper and deeper until you let go of your ego, until you let go of the duality between good and bad, between pure and impure, the duality between nirvana and samsara. All that is letting go. But it may work for yourself that you find one word you really want to go into, you want to practice deeply. But when we want to help other beings, we need to have a toolbox. And the toolbox needs to be very full, because beings are so different. When we look at the different people around us, people have different priorities, different likings, different talents, different roots of wisdom, different obstacles, and different ages, different cultures, and so on. So there's all this diversity of sentient beings. There are animals, there are humans, there are ghosts, there are devas. So they all need a different approach to the Dharma. So when we want to help, we make the vow to help all sentient beings. then we also need the tools to help all sentient beings. And those tools, we need to learn. And so on the Bodhisattva path, there is a lot about we learn methods, we learn Dharma doors, but we also learn worldly skills that can be useful to make a good connection with people, and that may be the first step we can reach out to them. When we want to help people, it's not only we help people who come anyway, who want to learn the Dharma, but we are active and we create good connections with people in the street. We create friendly reactions to many unknown strangers, and by this karmic connections that we create, then people at some later point in their lives, they may come back to us, and then we have a chance to talk to them about the Dharma. But at first, maybe they are not interested, and we are not like certain religious missionaries who try to really convince someone of a certain truth and impose their beliefs on them. Everything in Buddhism is very soft, and we only offer our help. We are there for beings, but we don't force them. It doesn't work because the practice everyone needs to do for themselves. We cannot make the practice for them. And it's not enough when someone is just coming to a Buddhist temple and said, okay, because someone else pulled them there. That's nice that they are there, but if they have a bad experience there, they may, in their mind, turn away from Buddhism. And that is the opposite of what we wish. So we need all kinds of tools, and maybe it's a tool of helping others to repair their bicycle or something else, and help an old lady carry some bags to her car. And this way we create a good connection with people. And that is very important. And that is what we can live in our daily life. Every day long we are surrounded by people, and we create those connections. And we, for example, we say Bodhisattvas have 5 areas of learning. And the 5 learnings, there's 4 that sound very worldly. And the 5th is the internal practice of the Bodhisattva's own mind. So we have again the aspects of self-practice and practicing for others. So self-practice, the internal learning is, or the clarity of the mind, is about cultivating the Bodhisattva's own mind. And for that we use the techniques, meditation techniques or meditation methods or sutras and whatever we practice personally. And we and the everyday life practice, our precepts and so on. So, but the others are, for example, language skills. When we know different languages, we can reach out to different kinds of people. So language on the Bodhisattva path is very important. We can bridge bridges between 2 or more cultures, and we can reach people and teach them the Dharma, or otherwise we can help them to come closer to us and have a good connection. So the Buddha himself is said to have what we call language samadhi. The Buddha in India at that time, there were in different regions were different languages, and the Buddha went from traveled a lot by foot, big distances, and he didn't learn all these languages of the different areas, and he didn't have a translator. But when the Buddha gave a talk, everyone could understand. Different people with different languages could understand the teaching in their language. And that is one of the let's say, magic capacities of the Buddha. One of the magic powers is that language samadhi. that the Buddha could speak in one language and everyone could understand. The same as the Buddha didn't have a microphone. So sometimes there were thousands of people listening to a Dharma talk and they could all hear. And nowadays we think that's impossible. We have a room with 20 people and we want to use a microphone. So those are the magic capacities of a Buddha. And so in the Bodhisattva vows, in the 5 learnings, language skill is one learning that a Bodhisattva can learn. And when we use our skill, when we learn foreign languages, in the next life, we can pick up those languages more easily because it's not lost. Of course, we might have forgotten, but then when we come in contact with that again, we can find, oh, it comes, learning the new language comes very easily. So that's important to learn foreign languages if we are on the Bodhisattva path. The second is logic. So when we want to, some people, they are very intelligent and they want to hear arguments that make sense. So when we read some of the sutras, the Buddha often also used logic to convince others that his teachings were the correct truth. And when we speak or something, then our sense of the way we should express ourselves should be logical and should be clear. So that's also a way of the Bodhisattva's training. The next part is medical skills. Medicine, health issues are a big issue that people suffer from a lot. And so Bodhisattvas can also train in some medical skills and can help people to solve their medical problems. And by that way, they don't need to directly learn Buddhism, but they get a positive connection with the Buddhist teachings. And also, or even if they don't know you are a Buddhist, they get a positive connection with you as a person who is practicing the Bodhisattva path. So that way, again, you create a good karmic connection with that person, relieve their suffering, and at some later point in this life or in future lives, they will come to you and they will come and may learn the Dharma from you. So that is medical knowledge. And the last one is technical skills. And that is very broad. So there's a lot of, let's say, you know how to repair a car, you know how to cook, you know how to deal with computers and a lot of things. And when you have those skills, you can help people when they have problems. And then again, you create a good relationship with them and you create, they may come and at some point in the future, they may come to you and learn the Dharma from you. And all that is very long term. So we don't only look at this life, but we look at many, many lifetimes. So on the Bodhisattva path, we are never tired of learning Dharma methods, learning the Dharma, the sutras, the commentaries, learning, even trying different meditation methods for ourselves. So we have used them, we can share them, and we have our experience with them. Not only meditation, but there's other formal Dharma practices like reciting sutras, mantras, reciting the Buddha's names, making prostrations, walking meditation, and ceremonies and so on. So there's all kinds of formal Dharma training that we should learn, so many different methods we should experience for ourselves, and also many Dharma, many methods, many skills that don't seem to have anything to do with the Dharma. But when we think about the first vow, we want to help countless beings, then it's very important that we know they don't all come to us and want to learn the Dharma in words. There's much more to it. So, for example, here in the Miaofa Center here in Berlin, I'm also taking part in food sharing. That is an organization that saves food before they throw it away in the supermarkets, and I share the food with other people, with the neighbors. So that is a way to create a good relationship with the neighbors. And at some point, maybe they lose the shyness to come to the center, or maybe at some point they find, oh, the center is very friendly and they come for help, or you can give them some advice, or even if it's in next life or after next life, it doesn't matter. So we create this by giving them something, sharing something. We create a good relationship with them. And so that's, of course, everyone has 24 hours time, and we have to look at each period of our life or our year, what is the right thing to do. We have to set our priorities. We can't do everything as one person, but we can work together and we can share the work. And we just to make the vow means that we are never tired of learning, of thinking new methods, how we can approach sentient beings, create good connections with them, and learn more methods. That is the third great vow. And the fourth great vow, supreme, is the Buddha way I vow to attain. So this is to understand that the enlightenment of the Buddha is really the absolute supreme, that nothing can go in the world goes beyond that realization of the Buddha. And that this is really a very wonderful experience that the Buddha has made. This absolute truth, this absolute awareness. And this is the absolute that can be attained, and that we all have Buddha nature. We all have that capacity to become a Buddha, and we can realize our Buddha nature. Even though we may have a small enlightenment experience and we are still caught up in samsara, but we can we can train ourselves to deepen more and more our experience of our nature of awareness, of our Buddha nature. And so that is to have that confidence that we all have Buddha nature, and actually, in fact, Buddha nature is active at every moment. Buddha nature is that is listening to the Dharma right now, listening without judging, without discrimination, without the thinking mind, just the listening. And to have trust in that Buddha nature, that is very important. And to make the vow to fully realize that Buddha nature from beginning, from one maybe enlightenment experience to a deeper level of enlightenment, of understanding, and until we reach the milestone of overcoming samsara. But even after we overcome samsara, then that is we reach the bhumis, the bodhisattva levels of enlightened bodhisattvas, and then there are still altogether 10 bhumis where after enlightenment a bodhisattva continues the practice until he fully realized the same level as a Buddha. And so that is the fourth great vow. So I can recommend everyone to make those 4 great vows every day before you go to bed or in the early morning, and to strengthen your trust in Buddhahood, trust in Buddha nature, and also strengthen your readiness to be there for sentient beings and help them. And it's a very wonderful path. When you make those vows and you engage, you can see it's really wonderful to see how you grow in the process of helping others, how you deepen your own experience. And altogether, the way, the path, the Bodhisattva path is very magic. I can only experience, say from experience, what I have learned so far is very wonderful, and I wouldn't want to go back. So far about the Four Great Vows. Now we still have a few minutes for questions.
Thank you so much, Venerable, for sharing the Dhamma. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And thank you. I have a few friends here watching. Lots of appreciation messages, but no questions yet. Maybe our residents here have questions, or they're still contemplating on the teachings. They're a bit shy this morning. Right. Maybe we can leave a few seconds for people to type in any questions they might have. Thank you, Venerable. You described the teachings in much detail, so I think we're all still absorbing the lessons. Venerable Vimalayani, you have a question?
I have a question.
Great.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My question is, actually in Theravada, there are also quite a few people who are keeping Bodhisattva vows. So I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about this. Is this something that from the Mahayana perspective, you think this is weird, or this is something that should be encouraged? Or how do you feel about this, Theravada people practicing Bodhisattva vows?
Well, of course, it's great. There's not much more than I can say about it. Of course, it's always great if someone made this great vow, no matter whether in Theravada or in Mahayana.
Great. Do you have the vow?
Could you?
I don't have the vow.
Good question. You don't. That's okay too.
Yet. I will say yet.
Who knows? Lately, I've been very interested in Jizo Bodhisattva, Kriti Gaba Bodhisattva.
Yes.
So I found a very strong connection with him somehow. So
yes.
I've been very interested. I've been trying to read books, but I can't find much about him. But somehow I feel that there's some kind of connection there.
Have you read the Kriti Gaba Sutra?
I skimmed it, but I haven't read it in detail.
Yeah, when you have it, then read it, because that's the main sutra that also describes the vows and the practice of Bodhisattva Kriti Gaba. For those of you who are not so informed, Bodhisattva Kriti Gaba is a Bodhisattva who made the vow to help all beings in the hell realms. And he made the great vows: before the hells are not empty, he will not attain Buddhahood. And that is a very great vow, because there are so many beings in hell, and there are always more beings, because people also create new karma to be reborn in hell. So that is a very great vow.
Thank you.
To have a Chinese link is here. Maybe someone who can, because I cannot type here while I'm speaking. Or in Chinese, it's called 四弘誓愿. I'm sure you can find it on the internet. And if there's a Chinese writer here, maybe you can put it in the comments. 四弘誓愿.
All right, thank you, Venerable. And Michael asks, can you elaborate on Bhumi? I'm not sure I understand the word so well.
There's levels. Bhumi is a level of Bodhisattva, of an enlightened Bodhisattva. And on the Bodhisattva path, there's altogether, depending on the sutra, there's many different levels. So in the moment we decide to make this Bodhisattva vow, we become a beginner's Bodhisattva. The moment we make the vow, we engage on this Bodhisattva path, so we become a beginner's Bodhisattva. Because right then we are not enlightened. And then you go through different stages. In the Avatamsaka Sutra, there's 52 stages, and we call the bhumis are the 10 bhumis are advanced stages of the Bodhisattva path, where the Bodhisattva has already overcome samsara. So the Bodhisattva then is not reborn because of karma, because he already realized the emptiness of the self. But because he realized emptiness, but he also realized the miraculous function of mind. So he can, after nirvana, he doesn't enter nirvana in the way that he's not available, but his mind is in the state of nirvana, a little bit similar to an arhat who is still physically present. And so but his physical body is maybe not present, but his mind is still in that state of mind that he can physically manifest in different forms. And this is only possible for bodhisattvas who reach that bhumis. And that is also, there's 10 bhumis altogether in that level before you reach Buddhahood.
Great. Thank you, Venerable. That was the last question for this morning. So I think we're actually right on time, 8:59. So right when it's supposed to end. So thank you so much for sharing these teachings. So we can end with 3 sadhus. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And for the friends who are in this part of the world where time makes sense to stay a couple of hours online at 10:30 New York City time, we'll have Venerable Sakya Dhammadina Bhikkhuni from India, who will be live streaming from India the introduction to the Abhidhamma. This will be the 3rd class, so you're welcome to tune in at that time. And then at 6 p.m. here at Anti-Cloud, we will be also live streaming whatever teachings will happen here during our usual class. And then next week, we will be meeting again with Shifu Simplicity at 8 a.m. New York City time for the 4th, I think, is now the 4th session of her teachings on Bodhisattva. So thank you so much, Venerable, and thank you everyone for being so interested in the Dharma. And see you all next week. All right.
Amitofo.
Amitofo.